My name is Russ. I basically handle the artistic side of things, which is the music and the sound and the booking and the timetable, and the basic concept of what kind of emotional impact we're trying for the event to achieve, essentially. The details, such as everything that makes the party actually happen, like the staff and the organization, I'm somewhat involved, but not too much. I mostly give that to So and my wife Yasuo handle most of the organizational details, so I can focus just on sound and music.
そうです。ラビリンス今年10年目なんですけども、実は僕が関わり始めたのは最初じゃなくて2年経ったと3年目からジョインしてます。で、3年目は奈良俣キャンプ場でやった時代に皆さんで混ぜてもらったんですけど、それからにとっては8年目のラビリンス、一応ずっと DJ やらせてもらいながらそれだけじゃなくて運営面のサポートもいろいろ出してもらって、今や DJ ライフの中でなくてはならない、今年10年目ってことですね。なるほど。ちゃんとやろうと思って。僕がラスト知り合ったのはその3年目の前の夏のイベントで、なんか千葉でやったゴルフ場でやった野外パーティーがあって、そこでシバチャンドラとかダブルドラゴンがプレイしてる中で僕もプレイしてて、そこでダブルドラゴンに紹介してもらって、でも僕はラビリンスでパーティーやったの知ってたんで、いいなって思いながらも、でもラビリンスって僕から見てるとやっぱり外人のガイタレ DJ とかあって日本人はほぼいないので、中でやっぱり僕も一人 DJ としてどうやったらできるか、そういうことを考えたんですよ。その時ラスに自分が作った当時プログレッシブトランスのミックス CD を出して、朝用っていうのと夜用っていうのを今ね作って渡したんですね。でラス結構多分いろんな人からそういう音楽もらったりとかラビリンスでやらせてくれっていっぱい言われてると思うんですけども、で僕も多分そのうちの一人で最初は、DJ やらせてくれっていうのもおこがましいので、まず手伝いたいと、ラビリンスパーティーって聞くのを手伝いしたいし、DJ もやりたいと思ってでラスがミックス CD 聞いてくれて、その感想をメールでもらったんですけども、それをまだ撮ってるんですけど、ミックス CD が良かった。DJ としても、スタッフとしてもやっていこうということで、初年度から、DJ としてやりつつ、DJ 手伝っていくのが始まり最初。
Essentially, I see electronic music, electronic dance music, doesn't matter if it's house or trance or techno or tech house or what have you. I see it as modern tribal music. I see tribal music as working best in a very ritualized setting. I don't see it working so well indoors in clubs. I think when you put it in a club, you take away this kind of tribal aspect of being outdoors. So for me, the essential aspect of Labyrinth is creating a new context for house and techno and dance music, and that context is outside. Keeping some of the same elements of a club night. Your club night has a nice flow, a warm up, and it goes through certain styles, and it has a finish. So I like that aspect of club culture, of good club parties. And you almost never see that outdoors. Outdoors, you tend to get festivals, and festivals are showcase events, essentially. You showcase one act, that act finishes, okay, bye-bye, someone else comes on, they play their act, and there's no story. Usually it's just showcase, 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 a little bit of this, a bit of that, some rock, some, what have you. And that's cool for some people. It's not very interesting for me. I want to create something which is a coherent experience where every act, every set, every DJ has a very certain role in the event, and they play with each other to create this whole 3-day story. Is more or less what we're trying to create. When you're in a club, everything is very controlled. There's no sunrise, there's no sunset, there's no rain, there's no hot, there's no cold. It's a very controlled environment. And when you're in a very controlled environment, it's hard to create something that interesting because if there's limits to what you can do. You're always going to be within these set parameters. When you're outdoors, those limits are essentially removed. It's a very unpredictable environment. You could get mist on the dance floor in the morning, you could get rain, you could get, like first night of Labyrinth last year was freezing, or you can do a party where it's cooking outside. So you can't predict that, you can't control that, which makes the artistic side of things far more interesting because the DJs and the artists, the live acts, have to be mature enough to understand the surroundings and the context of the event so they can adapt and play towards the situation. So when you have a team of guys who, and women, this year we have a female DJ, we have a team of artists that come in and they're determined to create something together, and they can adapt to the situation, then you have a chance to create something very special that can never be repeated. So it almost becomes like a soundtrack to nature. It's a soundtrack to the cycle of the day, night, morning, sunset, afternoon, sunset again. So that's one way to describe it, is like a soundtrack to the natural cycles, is how I see it.
野外だとやっぱりこう想定外に何かが起きて、それが多分辛い時もあるんですよ。寒いとか雨降ってフロアが汚いとか、そういうことも全部ひっくるめて、ただ逆になんか雨が続いた後にすごい晴れて綺麗だったりとかっていうのはクラブじゃ絶対経験できないし、なんかそれまで辛かった分その後の天気とかもっとドラマチックなことが起こり得るのはやはり野外じゃない。多分そういうことを。
Yeah, well, that's related to the origin of the event. The idea that electronic music is modern tribal music. And tribal music requires a tribal context. You can't put tribal music in a club and expect to get the best results. So I didn't want to make a club setting outdoors. I didn't want to have a big metal stage. I don't want to have your traditional festival setup. So teepee was a natural choice to create that kind of an atmosphere. Teepee is somewhat anonymous. You can't really see inside the teepee very well. You can't see the DJ. I don't want to focus on the DJ as a face or as a figure. I want to focus on the DJ as a conveyor of sound. So that comes from that. And then of course the function one comes from being the best speakers in the world. The party would not be Labyrinth without function one. It changes the way you hear sound completely. Always wanted to create just a totally pure experience with sound. You can't get that inside. You can't get that with most speakers. So function one is probably the most important element of the whole event. So you could argue that the creator of function one, Tony Andrews, is the most important artist involved in the event at any level. He's not going to be there, but his babies, his speakers, will be there. So I'll give you two examples of that. The first Labyrinth, we put on the flyer deco decoration, and we just wrote mist. And for whatever reason, the dance floor was covered in mist for most of the party, and so that was just having fun with the flyer, and then seeing, wow, okay, actually the deco is mist for the event. Another example of that would be a couple years ago, Marcus from Minilog, he played the final set of Labyrinth, and he was inside the teepee. And inside the teepee, you couldn't see the sky so much. You couldn't really see out. You could see the dance floor, but not behind him the sky. And it was sunset, and the sky turned totally pink behind the trees and behind the teepee. So the whole dance floor could see the sky turn pink, but he couldn't. But by whatever accident or fate, he played a track, James Holden remix of Nathan Fake's "The Sky Turned Pink," and people were freaking out on the dance floor, and he doesn't know exactly why, but that kind of moment you have to be outdoors to create.